Okay, I'll hand over the microphone to Narivia to introduce us to the webinar.
Okay, hi everyone. I wanted to say a quick welcome. As most of you know, we were planning on holding this in person over a one-day workshop, but we're currently unable to. So we decided to move this online. So this is just the first event that we're hosting. And please follow our website and look out for the emails for the events to come. We're really excited to take this discussion online in a series of events, including some research presentations and also including some more general discussions. So I'll hand over to Nonso to introduce Biniam.
Okay, thank you. Just a bit of housekeeping before we continue. We'll have 40 minutes for Biniam to present and about 20 minutes for questions. To ask questions, you can either use the Q&A option to type your question in, or you can raise your hand and then I will unmute your mic just so that we can keep things orderly. But let me introduce Biniam Beraso. He used to be he's still at ERSA, still a post associate at ERSA and on the advisory board, but his current primary role is with the Collaborative Africa Budget Reform Initiative. He has a PhD in public policy from Maastricht University and has been a scholar in many universities around the world. He is going to talk about college major choice and neighborhood effects in a historical segregated society. And Biniam, you have the floor.
Right, okay, thank you, Nonso. Can you hear me well?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you. So this paper is based on research I conducted some 5 years ago while I was at ERSA. I mean, it's very well known that South Africa is a highly unequal society, and the segregation, the legacy of the segregation and the spatial inequality is still quite visible. And I was wondering about how that might have affected the choice students make at high school and universities, and how that shapes their career paths, and directly or indirectly. So then I had fortunately had access to administrative data at UCT, and I decided to investigate how applicants to the University of Cape Town make their choices for college major. So in terms of an overview, the objective is to explore factors affecting the choice of investment in specific human capital and in a presence of significant intergroup and spatial inequality. So that's South Africa. There is significant racial inequality, there's significant class differences, and there's also spatial inequalities. And then it's focused on specific human capital, because human capital is not generic. It's highly heterogeneous, and we really need to understand how talent is allocated across different fields of education in order to understand inequalities. The method is based on, in terms of data, it's based on administrative data. Like I said, I had access to an extensive administrative data from University of Cape Town, and I used that together with the quarterly labor force survey from Stats South Africa. So just to give you an overview of the key findings before we go through the details of the study. One major finding is that expected earnings have a positive impact on major choice. So what students expect, what applicants expect to earn from a major, based on, conditional on their aptitude is one of the key factors. White applicants are more responsive to differentials in expected earnings than black applicants. And then when it comes to neighborhood effects, the effects of location comes through near peer role models and relative achievement at high school level. So so the plan of my presentation, I will proceed as follows. I'll give you a brief background, a brief look into the theory, and I'll describe the data and the key snapshots of the summary of the data. I'll talk briefly about identification, and then I'll go to the results, and then I'll conclude. So in terms of background, like I've already said, heterogeneous human capital is key to understanding intergenerational inequality, because especially at the middle part of the income distribution, where human capital is a key factor, what really matters these days in this day and age is not the number of years of education that you have, or whether you have completed college or not, but what really matters is what kind of human capital you have, how adaptable, how marketable it is in the current circumstances, in the current global market, and I think it's really important for a country like South Africa to understand how people choose different fields of education, especially at the college level, and how talent is allocated. So it's not only about individuals, but also from a societal point of view. It's if there is an inefficiency in the allocation of talent for various reasons, it affects the growth potential of the economy. It affects the political economy dynamics, because the allocation of talent in efficient and unproductive activities may encourage rent seeking, and that may affect the political economy equilibrium. So it may have far-reaching consequences, the allocation of talent. So that's the rationale. That's why I got interested in this question, in this whole subject matter. And specific questions that I'm going to ask by studying this is, how do various groups respond to differentials in measure specific expected earnings against the backdrop of sizable inequality and economic and socio-political endowment? So it's more specific. So there are differences in expected earnings, and those expected earnings are measure specific, but how do, so in the presence of inequalities, for example, racial inequalities in South Africa, and social political endowments, for say like political endowment, political connections, how do people respond to those expected earnings? So that's one of the main questions I would like to answer. The second question is, how do peer effects and relative achievements influence college major choice at the level of specific neighborhoods and schools? And these questions are
Did we lose Biniam?
It seems like it.
Let me try and call him and see what happened. Apologies. To the attendees, apologies for the technical difficulties. I think Biniam is trying to reopen his connection. So hopefully we have him back soon. Thank you.
Hello?
Okay, yes, thank you. You are back. So can you reshare your screen again?
Sorry? Okay, yeah.
Yes.
Let me do that. Okay. Okay, can you see the screen now? Okay.
Yes, thank you. All right.
Okay, sorry. I don't know how I get disconnected. I mean, my Wi-Fi dropped on my laptop, but it was on my cell phone anyway. Okay. Okay. Where was I? So the question is, it's very relevant for South Africa for various reasons. Okay. Yeah. So the theory. So how do people make choices in college? How do people choose different college between different college majors? And then one obvious theoretical framework is the life cycle decision making process. So the life cycle decision making process it includes decisions. It starts from decisions made from early childhood up until through high school to college, and it even includes different career choices. But for this study, I limited to choices made at college level. So it's a stochastic decision-making process, and it's composed of the current decisions made at choice, the expected payoff from attending college in a certain major. So that's conditional on ability and preferences, but it's also a function of the continuation payoff from that major after college. So the first equation is it describes that the payoff at college level and the discounted continuation payoff post graduation, and that continuation payoff is also conditional on ability. So after a few steps of solving this this function, the life cycle decision making function, we arrive at a reduced form equation that which shows the value function of a certain choosing a certain major, which is a function of ability as a function of high school background. So the ability of a certain individual. So the first term in the second equation is the ability of a certain individual to undertake a certain major in college, and that's a function of high school preparation. It's also a function of the pecuniary cost of major J, how expensive it is to take that major at college level. It depends on individual and school characteristics, and obviously it depends on expected payoff from measuring in J. So in order to estimate this reduced form function, I chosen to use the nested logit model. So the the probabilities are nested. Because people choose different measures in steps. So first, people choose whether to go to science and technology or to social science. So that's a first level decision, and that kind of decision is usually made as far back as high school, when it's determined by the type of electives people may take at high school. So that's one level of decision making. But once people have decided whether to do science or to social sciences, or to go to the arts, then they choose the specific measure. So that's a second level decision. And so the decision making within the mainstream of study, whether it's science or social science, that those decision making, those are correlated. So the errors within those big categories are correlated. So for this kind of decision making, the most appropriate estimation strategy, I think, is a nested logit estimation strategy. So that's what I'm going to follow. So the data is, like I said, from the University of Cape Town. It's administrative data, and it's based on the application database from 2010 to 2013. So it's over 4 years. The data UCT compiled from applicants over 4 years. So in each year, there are between 13,900 and 16,000 applicants. So it's a massive database in terms of individuals and the numbers of number of individuals, and in terms of the scope, it contains, it's much more than academic performance. It has information on family background, because UCT at some point decided to collect data on family background to do the affirmative action decision more on an informed basis, to have more information, more insights into the affirmative action strategy. It also has data on location, on the address of the applicants, and also on their high school. So in this database, of 4 years, we have something like 3,700 postcodes, and specific postcodes, and 1,577 high schools. So this is a huge opportunity to do spatial level analysis, to do how the location and spatial inequality may have influenced college major choice. So for this analysis, I used the most recent year, the 2013 applications, and applicants are asked to choose two measures as their first choice and as a second choice. And for this analysis, I use only the first choices, because the second choices might be problematic, because applicants might be more strategic when it comes to second choice. If they don't get their first choice, then they may choose strategically. The second choice might be more strategic than revealing their true preferences. So I limit it to the first choices. And the preceding year, so when I used 2013, I used the preceding years to calculate neighborhood trends. So the 2010, 2011, and 2012, the data, the admission data, I used to calculate the trends in specific neighborhoods in terms of going to UCT. The quarterly labor force survey data is used to calculate expected earnings in each field. So the average income of individuals 30 years or younger is used to approximate the expected earnings of applicants in the future in the labor market. So limiting it to the sample to people 30 years or younger it's a bit problematic in terms of lifetime earnings, because it doesn't capture a big chunk of the labor market lifespan of individuals. But it's more realistic in terms of what can be a representative for current students is because for people older than 30 years, the labor market dynamics, the history of the country, it was quite different, and it might not be representative of the current situation, and current students might not really use that information to make their decision. So I have limited it to 30 years or younger. So that average income data is used to approximate the expected earnings of current applicants. So in terms of calculating expected earnings, I've used two alternative specifications. One is the egalitarian distribution. I'm calling it egalitarian distribution because it assumes that after college, all students face the same type of the same distribution of income. So it's more egalitarian, and the aptitude only affects the probability of graduation. So the aptitude and the ability of applicants is only relevant for completing college, and once they have completed college, they face the similar distribution of income. The meritocratic distribution, so that's the second alternative. So in that distribution, aptitude can potentially affect within major pay distribution. So the students that have scored high in their high school living exams, so that ability distribution may potentially affect their pay after college. So the good students today may face higher pay even within the same college, within the same major after graduation. So it's more meritocratic, and it's more refined distribution. Okay, so the nesting structure, I talked about the nested logit estimation. So just to give you an idea of what the nesting structure looks like more clearly. So there's the college applicants face the choice to go to science and technology on the one hand, and social sciences on the other hand. And if they decide to go to science and technology, then they have the options to choose science, engineering, or health sciences. If they choose to do social sciences in college, then they can choose commerce and humanities and law on the other hand. So I mean, these are the actual faculties at the University of Cape Town. I have combined humanities and law to simplify the choices, because the law admission is not that big and it's closer to humanities in terms of content and orientation. So I have decided to limit the choices, the majors that applicants can choose to 5, and these are actual faculties. And when applicants choose their majors, when they apply to UCT, they choose one of these faculties, and then they choose specific majors. But for this analysis, the major choice is limited at these 5 faculties, at the level of these 5 faculties. So the 2013 applicants database said in order to give you a snapshot of what the data looks like and the highlights of the summary. The admission rates show health science and engineering are the most selective faculties, because I think they admit less than 10%, close to 8 or 9% of applicants. So you can assume that these measures might be high return, high payoff measures, but they may also require more effort, and they might be difficult to go through. There are 3 sets of variables to measure academic preparation. One is the national school certificate score, so that's the matric score, the one that all high school leavers, all high school students take at the end of high school. There's also the NBT, the National Benchmark Test Score, that's given by some universities in South Africa, including UCT. So that's administered by the university, and it measures college preparation, adaptability, and specific aptitudes for college education. So the 2 tests, and there's a significant overlap, but the NBT is more geared towards measuring the preparation of the student for college. So I assume that NSC scores, they measure overall aptitude, but the NBT scores measure how successful that student, they predict how successful the student might be in college. And the third variable is number of science courses. Number of science courses the students, the applicant took in high school. There's a high standard deviation in number of science courses taken in high school. So that shows you the level, the disparity in preparation, in preparedness in different high schools. There are certain high schools that offer a number of science electives, and there are high schools in certain parts of the country that do not even offer the standard science curriculum. So that shows you the level of inequality at high school level. The majority of applicants attended private high schools, that was to be expected, but close to 47% would be the first in 3 generations to earn the college degree. So even though many of the applicants come from private high schools, not a great many of those have the family background, the parents or grandparents who went to college. The racial composition is 51% Black, 24% white, and 25% colored and Asian. So I combined the colored and Asian groups to make it easier for analysis. So now, in terms of establishing causality, there's the obvious question: how do you make sure that the expected earnings really are identified? The effect of expected earnings on college major choice is causal, and on the one hand, and then also on a spatial inequality side, how do you make sure that the location and the neighborhood effects are really causal in terms of their effect on college major choice? So that's a question, that's a challenge that I needed to grapple with. So expected earnings is a function of aptitude. What you expect to earn in the labor market is a function of aptitude, whether it's based on your probability of finishing college or the part of the income distribution you fall in after college. Aptitude matters for expected earnings, but aptitude also affects the major choice through other channels. So that's a challenge in terms of identification. And the identification strategy that I have adopted, even though it's not perfect, is to use the richness of the information, the academic information in the data set. So, like I said, I have multiple overlapping indicators to measure academic preparedness, the aptitude of the applicant. So one is the NSC, another is the NBT. So okay, 10 minutes, all right. So the NBT, so the NSC and the NBT measure the same thing in most cases, but there is also difference because NBT measures the preparedness of the student for college, to go to college. The NSC measures preparedness in high school, the overall aptitude of the student. So if I control for both, if I use both, the NSC controls for ability, overall aptitude, and the portion of the NBT that's not accounted by the NSC will help me to identify the effect of aptitude to influence expected earnings. So by using redundant variables, measuring more or less similar, the same type of information, I can identify, I can use the part that's not captured by one variable to identify the effect of aptitude on measure. So that's a strategy that I use. In terms of the neighborhood effects, the coefficients are identified because they are estimated based on geographical variation. So there's no, I don't expect there to be reverse causality because the level of measurement, the measure choice is made at an individual level, but the neighborhood effect variables are measured at a neighborhood level. So there's that difference in the level of measurement will help me to identify the effect. Okay. Okay, so just to go through the results. So first, I estimated the determinants of high school curriculum choice because the first level of decision making is that applicants make in the past before they come to college, before they apply to UCT, is their choice of high school curriculum. And in terms of the determinants, so I just talk about the highlighted parts, and it's the dependent variable is the number of science electives, and how prepared the applicants are for to do science in college. The female dummy is negative, so it's the common. It's common. It's almost common everywhere that there is a bias towards there's a gender bias in choosing science both in high school and in college. But it's interestingly the public school dummy is positive. So, but I think that can be interpreted as those students. We're looking at a selected sample. So this is a selected sample of applicants who thought they would qualify. They would make it to UCT. So that's a selected sample, and those applicants who come from public school, usually if they think that they can make it to UCT, they probably want to go to the science fields, and they may know that they are already well prepared in science and in science fields, and they may be ready for science and engineering and health education. So that's how I interpret this positive correlation between the public school dummy and number of science electives in this equation. And the first generation college dummy is negative, and so it means that those people who do not have parents or grandparents who went to college are less likely to be well prepared in science at high school level. So in terms of estimating the effects of expected labor market returns, like I said, that I use the nested logic specification. It's a two-level decision making. So the first level, which students usually make at the high school level, is to choose their orientation towards whether they go to science and technology or to social sciences, and that's a function of high school curriculum or municipality level variable. So that's, I assume that's more influenced by the location of the student, whether where that student went to high school or which municipality that high school is located in. The second level of choice is the choice of specific measure. So that's usually made at the time of application to college. And so students choose from the 5 specific faculties, and that's assumed to be a function of major specific expected earnings. It's a function of family background and demographic variables. So this shows you the results of the random utility model, the nested logic estimation of major choice with market and non-market returns. So really the key results. This is part of the results. I mean, the actual table is longish. The one that's published in the paper is longer than this. But I have picked out the most relevant variables just for in order to guide this discussion and to show you the key results. So so the key variable, the key variables are the expected earnings, the 2 alternative specifications, the egalitarian distribution, and the meritocratic distribution. Like I said, just to remind you, the egalitarian distribution is when students face when they are assumed to face a uniform distribution after college, and aptitude doesn't really affect where they fall in the income distribution once they have completed college, so that the within major income distribution is uniform. In terms of the in the case of the meritocratic distribution, the within major income distribution is different. So even if 2 students complete a degree in economics, so they don't face the similar distribution, the average income for economics once they complete college. So their income level, even within economics, depends on their aptitude, and that aptitude can be predicted by their high school performance and their NSC and their NBT scores. So that's the difference. And so basically both specifications of expected earnings, they have a positive and significant impact. But when you control for number of high school, so if you look at the third row, when you control for number of high school science courses, when you control for high school preparation, then the egalitarian distribution loses its explanatory power. But the meritocratic distribution still maintains a strong positive and significant effect on major choice after controlling for high school preparation. So that shows you, regardless of the level of preparedness of the student at high school level, once you have a more refined distribution, ex-ante distribution of income, once you have more information about within major income differentials and between major income differentials, expected income, the potential labor market outcomes still have a strong predictive power in terms of influencing college major choice. So going quickly to the average marginal effects and to the racial differences. So like Black and white students respond differently to these expected earnings, whether it's in the form of the egalitarian distribution or the meritocratic distribution. And that's one important factor in South Africa. We need to look at the racial differences in responsiveness. And overall, in almost all the fields on faculties, white students are more responsive than Black students. But interestingly, in areas like health sciences and engineering, which are which are supposed to be high return majors, the difference in the level of responsiveness is narrow. So both black and white applicants respond to incentives. They respond to higher expected earnings in these fields than they do. I mean, in the humanities. So this is probably one of the more encouraging results of this study. And in terms of high school science electives, so when you increase the number of science electives available or that students can take, the probability that students choose science and technology in college increases significantly. So that's another result. Okay, so the second component. So we finished talking about the effect of expected earnings and high school preparation, the science preparation in high school. But now we move to the effect of spatial inequality and neighborhood effects. So spatial inequality is beyond municipality. Like I said, we have data at the postcode level. We have neighborhood and school. We can measure neighborhood and school effects. I use two indicators to approximate the impact of spatial inequality. So one is near peer role models. So near peer role models are applicants, students that are attending the University of Cape Town who come from a certain postcode, and who are only 2 or 3 years before the applicant. So they are closer in age to the applicant, and they live in the same neighborhood in terms of their original residence. So the assumption is that applicants look up to students that came before them, who applied to college, maybe who were accepted into a certain college and who applied to a certain major. So so the idea is that when there are students who, whether it's a poor neighborhood or a remote neighborhood, if there are students who applied to UCT and got accepted into engineering or health sciences before a certain applicant, that gives them the information, that gives them the encouragement, that gives them the incentive to apply to health sciences or to engineering at UCT. So that's the assumption that I'm trying to test, and I calculate the trend, the acceptance trend, the admission trend, UCT in the years. Okay, yeah, in the years, I have only 3 slides left. So in the years before, the near peer role model effect is measured by the trend of admission in a certain in a given postcode in the years before 2013. Okay, the other indicator to measure neighborhood location effect is the relative achievement in high school. So there could be students who go to less competitive high schools, who perform well in a less competitive high schools, but there are also comparable students who might go to a highly competitive high school, but with the same level of aptitude and with the same level of ability. So the fact that certain students with the same level of aptitude attend a less competitive school might give them a higher self-esteem, might push them to aspire to apply to more highly competitive majors. So there's a common description for that in the sociology literature. So the big frog in a small pond. So that's the student in a less competitive school, and the comparable student in a high competitive school, in a highly competitive school, could be described as a small frog in a big pond. So I try to measure whether people who with the same level of relatively roughly the same level of score, who went to a less competitive school, how do they apply, how do they choose their college majors compared to the comparable students who went to less competitive, a more competitive school. Okay. Yeah, sorry. All right, okay. So just in 2 minutes. So this is the similar specification, nested logic specification with the spatial, with the neighborhood and real near peer role model effects included. And the highlighted row shows you that the near peer role model effect is positive and highly significant. It's very strong. It's controlling for all sorts of variables. It holds, and it shows you that the fact that there were students that were accepted to UCT in the years before in a certain postcode increases the likelihood that applicants choose certain majors, especially in science and engineering. This shows you the average marginal effect, and it's significant. The average marginal effect of the ratio of near peers admitted to the same faculty, and it's the highest in the areas of in the area of health sciences. So that's UCT. I think is known for its health education, and it shows you that when if one person is admitted before, if you increase, no, it's not 1%, if you increase the ratio of near peers admitted to UCT to health sciences by 1 standard deviation, so that increases the probability of a certain applicant applying to health sciences in the subsequent year by close to 15%. So that's a highly material effect, and it shows you the impact of near peer role model. So concluding, in line with the life cycle model, high school choice is shown to be critical for college major choice. Expected earnings, it's shown to have the highest explanatory power when ex-ante distribution of income captures the full range of between major and within major differential. So the information. So one way of interpreting this is information about the between major and within major differential is important for students to make a more informed decision. The effect of near peer role model, like I said, it's large and clearly significant. And the responsiveness gap between black and white applicants is the smallest in high return majors, in majors like health sciences and engineering. And a good preparation in science seems to attract poor and remote applicants to UCT. So the public high school coefficient is positive, and applicants seem to target UCT if they want to go to do science and engineering and health sciences in UCT. So the high school level preparation seems to be important. In terms of in terms of policy implications, I think, I mean, it's not easy to jump to policy implications, but at least roughly we can argue that information is important. The level of information students, applicants, potential applicants have about different majors, and the payoff level in different majors is important. High school preparation is obviously important, and the effect of near peer role models, it shows you that there is a positive externality to work, to investing in a certain generation, and to trying to giving opportunity to students in certain neighborhoods, because that influences the next generation, and that has a positive externality in terms of inspiring the next generation. All right, thank you. That's what I have to say. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, William, for that very interesting presentation. We will move into our Q&A session now. There are two options. You can either raise your hand and ask the question live, or you can type it into the Q&A box and then I'll read it and ask it to Biniam. Now, we have a first question already, and Abby is asking about your racial classifications. It seems to be you group people only into black or white. But what about all the other categories, at least officially in South Africa, colored, Asian, Indians, and so on? Do you take your analysis to that level?
Yeah. So like I showed in the descriptive part, the data, it has all the four official race groups in South Africa: black, white, Asian, colored, and Asian. Well, I grouped colored and Asian together in order to simplify the choice, the number of choices. And the colored and Asian category is the omitted category. So all the white and the black coefficients are interpreted in terms of, so the benchmark, the reference category is the Asian and the colored category. So they are there, but so I can alter I can change the reference category. I can make it black, or I can make it white, and I can have results for the colored and Asian groups. But because of the nature of the estimation, I have to omit one group, and for the purpose of showing the effects of historical inequalities, I thought having the white and black categories and using the Asian and colored categories as a reference, I thought that would be best to do. So that's why it's because I have to omit one as a reference, but I have them in the data.
Okay, we have a question from Didmus Dewa. You can go ahead and ask a question.
Okay, I can see one other question about gender.
Thank you so much.
Oh, okay, yeah. Go ahead.
All right, thank you. So I would like firstly to thank the presenter for a wonderful presentation. My question goes on to the variables such as gender, culture, and religion. These variables, where do they come in this presentation? Gender, culture, religion, these social construct variables.
Okay. Yeah. So we have gender. Yeah. We have. Are you done with your question, or?
Yeah, you can go ahead and answer it. You go ahead and answer.
Yes, I asked to say, where do we place variables such as gender, culture, and religion?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So we have data, like I showed. We have gender data in the data in the database, and I showed in the analysis of high school preparedness, high school science courses, that gender has a negative coefficient. So that means the likelihood that women choose more high school science courses is negative. So but we can also introduce gender in the composing the analysis of college major choice. So like the same way I did for race, for black and white, we can do the same for gender. How the expected earnings, the effect of expected earnings, the effect of location and neighborhood effect differs between the two genders, between men and women. So that's possible. It's possible to do that. I haven't done it, but it's possible to do that. It's possible to disaggregate gender and to see whether women and men respond to expected earnings differently. We don't have data on religion, and I don't know. I don't see how religion may factor in, even if we have the data, how that may factor in major in college major choice. Culture, to some extent, is captured by race, but it's not entirely overlapping with race. I don't know how to measure that. Well, then obviously the data doesn't have a culture variable, but I mean, as far as we're concerned in terms of inequality, I think race is a good proxy to do that. Okay.
So we have a question from Dr. Freeman Mateko. So what happens if you extend the period from, say, 2000 to 2019? Do you expect that the outcomes will be different, or do you think that they'll be the same?
I'm sure that would be, because unfortunately I wasn't able to access data post 2013, but I'm sure UCT has experimented with its affirmative action policies. There was Fees Must Fall movement, and a lot has happened in the interim between after 2013, and I expect there might be a certain change. Society evolves, and there are efforts to transform higher education, to make education more accessible even at high school level in South Africa. So you'd expect that things might be changing, and I expect there to be differences there to be changes in a racial responses in the response of the different race groups. So I think that period after 2013, after that period when UCT started to collect socioeconomic data, and I think there were some policy changes, and it would be really interesting to see how these coefficients, how these effects have changed. But unfortunately, I don't have the data.
Okay, I have a question of my own. So UCT is one institution, and in some sense, if you're thinking about UCT in the distribution of university education in Nigeria, UCT is probably at a tail end. So do you expect, and I mean, I know this is there's probably lots of data that's not available because you can't get data from everywhere, but do you expect UCT to be representative of the average university? Or do you expect UCT to be representative of the average distribution within South Africa at least?
No. Actually, I don't expect UCT to be the average, even the average distribution even within South Africa. And then I didn't mention that here, but I made the argument in the paper that this is more about elite education. So so I mean what I'm really looking at is the at the higher end of the distribution. These applicants are most likely to form the elite of South Africa, and I'm trying to look at the upper middle class of South Africa in the next decades, and so I'm trying to look at how the inequalities, both individual and spatial inequalities, affected that composition, the elite composition. So you can extend this argument that and in terms of the composition of the elite, whether the Black elite disproportionately go to humanities and commerce as opposed to science and health and engineering, and so how is that the composition of the elite is influenced by these factors. So that's I don't claim these to be representative of the average distribution, but it's more about the elite and the upper middle class.
Okay, we have two questions from Eldridge Moses, and I'll just read them out. So the public school coefficient, do you think that has something to do with the heterogeneity of private school quality and academic offerings?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, unfortunately, we don't have quality. We don't have anything close to the quality in terms of the data. But yeah, I don't know a lot about the distribution of quality across the public and private spectrums in South Africa. But I expect there might be some really good public schools in some which is a good legacy of quality education in South Africa. So that may have to do with those good public high schools, and those applicants might be coming from those specific high schools. So an interaction with provinces and with municipalities might be interesting. It might give you an insight in where those public high schools might be located. So that might be an extension in an extension of this study. I may be able to do that, but yeah, it may have to do something with that. It may have to do with that. Yeah. And the second question, okay, yeah, I can read it aloud. I can't remember which slide it was, but there seemed to be a large difference in earning expectations as a motivator between white students and other students for law and humanities. Does this say something about labor market expectations, student motivations, or something else? Yeah. Yeah, that's also a puzzle. I mean, yeah, there's a significant, the largest difference in terms of black and white in responding to expected earnings is in the humanities and law. And well, yeah, this may, I mean, I can't really speculate a lot about this, but it may have to do with labor market and expectations. So there might be a significant range, a massive range in terms of expected returns in the humanities. And so when you finish with a humanities degree, you may you may earn a very small amount of salary per year. You can also be one of in the top 1%, and that might be explained by your connections and other factors that other than aptitude or your preparedness in college, and maybe your family background, your race, and all those non-educational factors might play into that. And this huge difference in responding to returns between the races in these areas might have to do with these non-market factors.
Okay, and then the final question from Dr. Freeman Mateko. Does your data include like information on educational grants and bursaries? Does that have any kind of bearing on racial representation?
No, because this is an application database, so it has information on whether the applicant was admitted or not, but it doesn't have anything. Well, it has information on whether the applicant would apply for bursaries, for grants, but it doesn't have anything other than that.
Okay, do we have any other questions from any of the attendees or the panelists?
I have a quick question, if I can jump in. It's related to Eldridge's question. Do you think the differences across majors, the different racial responses might be due to information differences? Because you spoke about how a lot of people are, the generation, first and third generations to go. So you might expect in health sciences, everyone knows doctors will earn a lot, but there's less information about commerce or humanities.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Across the board, I think, whether it's about health sciences, although in the health sciences the difference is the smallest, and it's the highest in humanities and in commerce, and it definitely may have to do with information, like you alluded. So it's for a disadvantaged student from a remote area, it might be. I mean, they may know a doctor or an engineer, but they may not know a CPA or an accountant or someone who's successful in the arts. And so that information, that familiarity with the sectors and with the potential returns, might be dependent on your background, and that's correlated to race in South Africa. So. Yeah, obviously, and then that's why I mentioned information in the policy implications. So these differences in responsiveness and the overall effect of expected earnings. It's about information. How much information the applicants may have about different majors. Yeah.
Okay, and we have two more questions, and I think we're running out of time, or we're already out of time, so we'll have to make this the last two questions. The first is from Mushoni Bulagi. What's your view on the role of career fairs and exhibitions that UCT offers? Does it make a difference in relation to earnings expectations?
I think it's, yeah, that's one policy tool that UCT can use. I mean, to career fairs and exhibitions, while they should probably take them to remote. They shouldn't expect students to come from remote areas to come to UCT to attend career exhibitions. Maybe they need to do more community outreach in remote areas and in poor and disadvantaged areas to attract more students. It looks like there is significant interest in applying to UCT from poorer and remote areas if students are well prepared in science, and so that's what the result shows. But they should really, I mean, in order to reach to more of those students, I think UCT should go to those neighborhoods and to those areas. And yeah, it may have significant impact.
Okay, and the final question from Claire. Is there a role for expected employability differentials across fields of study, in addition to your expected earnings differentials?
Yeah, employability. Yes, I think, I mean, it's correlated. I guess the income that you expect to make in a certain field and the level of job opportunities. Those are correlated because it's on equilibrium. I mean, if there are more unemployed people in a certain field, the wage is going to be lower. The equilibrium wage is going to be lower. And if there is a high demand for certain fields, and if you have a high probability of being employed, then the income, the average income, the mean income is going to be higher. So by taking account of the mean income, then you would automatically take account for employability. So the higher the income, the mean income, the higher the employability. So even if I don't have data on unemployment rate in different majors post-graduation, the income, I assume the income, the level of income will take care of that.
Okay, thank you. And with that, we've come to the end of our webinar. Narivia, do you have any final words for the attendees?
Just to say that our next event is on the 2nd of June. We have a presentation by Siobhan Hitchcock on gender bias in the economics profession. So I hope to see you all there. And thank you very much for attending today. And thank you, Binyam, for the very interesting presentation.
Thank you. Thank you very much for organizing this. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone. And until next time.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.